Hello and welcome to Scilence, a podcast that gives women a chance to get honest and open about what it's really like surviving and thriving in what often feels like a male-dominated world. All of my guests have been handpicked from the fields of science, technology, engineering and mathematics, or STEM, where inclusivity and diversity can be a real issue. I know this only too well, having been a mechanical engineer myself for a number of years. I'm Dr. Shanice O'Mara, now a television broadcaster. I've worked on and reported on some cutting-edge technology and innovation over the years, and through my TV work, I've met some incredibly inspiring women from a diverse range of STEM fields. These women are true trailblazers, and I have often felt so empowered myself by learning what they're like as real people, usually when the TV cameras have been turned off and they're just being themselves. Each week on Scilence, one of these women shares her unique experiences and truth, without the usual pressure and stress of having to promote her accomplishments or uphold her impressive reputation. How? Because all of my guests are deliberately kept anonymous and disguised to ensure that we as listeners are not distracted or maybe even intimidated by all the usual kinds of societal labels and trophies. The women of STEM on this show have amazingly impressive CVs, but most importantly, they're human, just like the rest of us, and I want to share the inspiration and wisdom that I've gathered from them with you. It's my hope that you really relate to what we chat about today. If so, please do subscribe to Scilence and maybe even rate and review the show. I'd love to have your feedback. This week, my guest is in the field of mechanical engineering. Hi.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're so welcome. You know, I always love having mechanical engineers on the show because I just feel like, if there's one thing I understand, it's studying mechanical engineering, having done it for so many years myself.
It's a fun field and it's really multidisciplinary. I think people in general has an impression that, mechanical engineering has to be about, fixing cars and stuff like that. But in reality, it can be a hot and sexy area, if you know what I mean, because, a lot of the technologically advanced research is actually very much done by mechanical engineers. So yeah, I just thought we should mention this at the beginning of the show in case people thought that we are just going to talk about getting our hands dirty and greasy.
Yes. Oh, thank you for clarifying that. I mean, whenever I tell people that I studied mechanical engineering, people always say to me, "Oh, can you fix my car?" And I always just roll my eyes because I definitely couldn't fix their car. But I very much understand how the engine works and various other components of that mechanical device or system. And it's just so weird how people have such an inaccurate idea of what mechanical engineers do.
I think it's not just mechanical engineer, but the label, what exactly is engineer? Because, any person who come and fix our bathroom is called an engineer.
Yes.
Anybody who come and check our gas safety is called an engineer. And
our Wi-Fi.
Yes, they are also called engineer, even though they never fix our Wi-Fi. But I think because of that, people have people in general don't have a very accurate impression of what exactly is an engineer. So to them, it'll be a guy who come and fix things. So when we tell people we are engineer, they immediately think that we will be able to fix something for them.
Does that frustrate you?
I wouldn't say that it's frustrating, but I think it really downgraded the word engineer a lot.
Right.
So it will be nice if people understand that engineers don't just use their hands, but we actually use our brain more. We are basically more like a problem solver rather than just get a spanner and tighten a nut.
And have grease under our fingers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that. It could also be fun too, but there's only one aspect of, our work.
Yeah. So how would you like an engineer to be perceived?
I never thought too much about how I would like people to perceive engineer or what I do, because sometimes we can't really please everyone, if you know what I mean. So we a lot of time we do what we like and we do what we think is right. So I feel that I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and as a byproduct of it, I'm also helping people. So
Mm.
I guess that's what I like about being an engineer. It's a challenging work, it's fun, but we also help people.
Oh, that's such an inspiring and beautiful answer. Because what I've always come across when it comes to engineers is they really do have a genuine passion and interest in what they do. And it sounds like you have that too.
uh well, I would look at it, helping people is just a byproduct, but the passion in what I'm doing, that is true.
Yeah. So, how did you get into it? I mean, from a very early age, did you believe that this was how your career would turn out?
In I would say that yes, because some people take a very long path to find out what they want, and I think it's now getting more and more common for our students as well. They will need to experience a lot before they realize what they like. For me, I know what I want to do since I was a very young child, and at that time,
Mm.
the only thing in my mind was I want to do something that help people. So, at some point, I thought about maybe I can be a doctor, but as it turned out, I'm afraid of blood. So if I cut myself, I really have to sit down. So I thought, okay, so what else I can do to help people? So
Yeah.
that's how I ended up to be an engineer.
Well, that is so cool that the next thought you had was, okay, engineering can help people. That's like, I mean, if that's second to being a doctor, that's really impressive, I think.
Well, I would say that in a sense, engineering or engineer really have big impact in the society. I mean, obviously, you have people who develop cancer drugs and whatnot, and they are definitely helping people. But
Mm.
sometimes I wonder, okay, we are living longer and longer life, but if we live a very uncomfortable life, so what's the point? So yes, we want to
Mm.
live long, we want to conquer all the disease, but engineer come in to make sure that our life is comfortable and in a sense worth
Mm.
living. So I think
Right.
we really make a big impact.
Yeah. What were you like as a kid? Was it obvious from your interests and your hobbies as a young girl that you would end up in something like mechanical engineering?
I think I know I'll be an engineer, or at least I know I'll be doing research, but mechanical engineering is not the first thing that come into my mind. So I start off being trained as a material scientist actually, and one thing maybe people might not know is that, as I said, mechanical engineering is actually a very broad field and it is really multidisciplinary. So um, this area actually attracts a lot of people from other discipline to join, and together as a team we try to make things better. So I'm basically one of those people who got attracted into mechanical engineering and slowly get converted to be a mechanical engineer.
So you kind of went into mechanical engineering from materials.
Yes.
So you went from something specific to something broad then.
You know, nowadays it's actually very hard to say which one is broad anymore, because everybody's work as a team and nobody know everything. So in mechanical
Yeah.
engineering, you also have a lot of chemists, you have a lot of physicists, you have chemical engineers, you have material scientists. But if you go and look at people in material science, it's actually the same thing. You also see electrical engineer, you see mechanical engineer. I think at the end of the day, it's about teamwork, and we have a
Yeah.
common goal about making life better for everyone.
So were you a typical sort of engineering style kid? I mean, I think I was, in the sense that I was always taking things apart, looking inside, seeing what they were made of, often breaking things because I didn't know how to put them back together again. So I just think there were clues in my childhood that I would end up studying engineering. Did you have anything similar like that?
I like to break toys just because sometimes it's fun to break things, but I'm not someone who like to really play Lego and whatnot. To me, it's more about
Ah,
curiosity of what is going on around me.
right.
If you look at the sky and you see the contrail and you wonder why they are formed
Yeah.
that way, or if you see a mosquito, jumping on a pond, and you try to think why is it like this, or uh, so it's
Yeah.
more about that. But I do end up becoming an experimentalist, so I do have to use my hand very regularly. But I'm
Right.
not a child that used to put Legos together, so to speak. But people mature in different way and they go through different paths. So I think a lot of
Mm.
the people that I met, they have a similar experience as you just mentioned. So there are people that really like to build things, and there are also other people who tend to just love to read and do a lot of math, and they all become good engineers.
Mm. Actually, I'm so glad that you say that, because I think we often live in societies where people like to pigeonhole. And so, they say, oh, you love playing with Lego, therefore you should be an engineer, or you loved playing with dolls and therefore you should be a nurse, or, or a mother. And it's so freeing to actually acknowledge that engineers can come from all different styles of childhood, and that we don't have to keep putting ourselves in boxes.
No, what you said is exactly right. I mean, the I think one of the privilege of being a child or a young person is that you can do what you like, and as I said, people like to experience a lot of things, and even even if someone, let's say if you have a teenager who is not doing mathematics or physics, it actually doesn't mean that they can't be an engineer. So I'll give
Mm.
you an example, but I'm not going to mention names. So I know this person who is a very, very famous researcher in the field. Um, I worked with him for a while, and that person actually had a undergrad degree in sociology and is now a very
Oh,
famous
wow.
scientist. So it's a matter of what you like and whether you're determined to do something. And people interests do
Yeah.
change, and that's why I think it's
Yes.
quite important not to put anyone, including ourselves, into a box. And that's why when we were asked how we were like in a child, or you know what we wanted to do when we were a child, in a sense, it really doesn't mean a lot, if you see what I mean, because we are who we are today, and that's actually what is important.
Ah, that kind of explains why you didn't quite answer the question when I first asked it. I was thinking, interesting, she's avoided the childhood question. But I completely agree with you. And it's so refreshing to hear you say that, because people's interests do change. And, often you see people have second careers, which have got nothing to do with what they studied. And so, thank you for your openness, um, open mindedness to actually encourage people to follow their passions and their curiosities rather than the labels they've collected along the way.
You have also changed career if you think about it.
I know, and I've spent a long time feeling a bit bad about it, I must say. But then I get to talk to amazing women like you and remember that, I also had a real curiosity for the world around me. And I enjoy sort of having that in common with you. And it makes me feel like, yeah, I'm still an engineer at heart. So, what was your journey like through academia in the sense of being a woman? Because, unfortunately, ratios haven't really changed that much of men to women. And so, what was your experience like going through academia?
I actually don't have bad experience. I think I'm one of those that are very fortunate. However, I remember when I was a student, um that was the time perhaps I was about to go to grad school, and I was trying to apply for school, and I was thinking of either mechanical engineering or materials engineering. And I talked to a professor, and that guy was very nice, and I worked with him for summer project and whatnot. And at the time, he said something really odd. He was saying that I was good as a student, and I should take advantage of my gender. And I felt really offended. Since
Mm.
then, the way I look at it is, whether I'm trying to hire my student or postdoc, or I try to work with other people, I do hope that they don't see me, whether I'm a female or male, they should just look at me as on my achievement. So this actually go back to the idea of, at the moment there's a lot of push about pushing more women into STEM. So especially for department like mechanical engineering, the thing actually is that if we start off not having a lot of female students now, it is very difficult to have female academics. So to have a more balanced uh, uh, number of women and men in the department, the only thing we can do actually is to think about what happened in 10 years or 20 years, where we go and inspire kids and teenagers to become engineer and to become scientists. So if we do it now by just pushing more women to become academic, despite the fact that the pool itself don't have a lot of female graduate students, then we run into the problem of people think that we get into where we are now because we are female. So, I mean, so I do understand that the policy nowadays is trying to do good. I think the intention is good, but I almost felt like the way we are doing now is actually a disadvantage to female academics. So I felt that we have to actually work extremely hard, or harder than my male academic, in order to get the recognition. Um, just because of the policy nowadays that we have to promote the female academic to go to become professor or whatnot, because of this idea of
Mm.
political correctness. So I don't know. I mean, it might not be what people want to hear. People in general want to celebrate a lot of female being in academic or in
Mm.
science, and they celebrate policy of promoting that. But I think to take such a short-term approach is not right, because it, it, in reality we just don't have that many people to choose from.
Mm. So you're saying that the limited number of people, the limited number of women we have to choose from ends up putting extraordinary pressure on them.
Yes. And when you have a female that is actually good, people look at you and think you get to where you are just because you're a female. So when
Ah,
I get my
yeah.
job, I get my job, I remember I was still in a foreign country because I did my PhD somewhere else. So when I told my colleagues there that I got a job, the first thing they said was, "Oh, you got it because you're female."
Right.
And
Yeah.
it actually also happened to my another black colleagues. He got a job
Yeah.
because he's black, but you see, because of this biasness, it kind of undermine the effort we have put in order to get to where we are. But I think things are changing in the sense of because of the outreach that we are doing. If we go to primary school now, and if we go to high school now, so that to talk to students, so that more female students understand that if they really want to do engineering, and if they actually have the passion to do it, they can do it. Then once you have more female students, some of them is bound to be very good, and that at that point, no matter whether you have policy to promote female academic or not, they will get to where they should be.
Mm. Yeah, I see your point, and it's very subtle, um, and also very significant. But how do you suggest resolving a lack of female role models then?
I was thinking, should we place so much emphasis on gender? So I can only speak from my own experience, or when I talk to my undergrad who wanted to move on to grad school. I mean, we might take a role model of a great scientist or a great engineer, but do we really think a lot about whether, for example, Newton is a male or a female? You see what I mean? I think it's in that I do understand the point of, if my role model is a female and the person has gone through some difficulty, maybe I could pick up some uh, tips on how to survive in a male dominating world.
Mm.
But I think the first thing, at least the way I look at it, is for me to be able to do my job and do my job well, is don't be too inward looking by emphasizing that I am a female. I mean, I am a researcher, I'm an engineer, I'm a person, and I take inspiration from great engineer, great scientists, and I don't think too much about the gender.
Mm. Does that mean that you haven't felt limited then because you're female in terms of the way you have learned and the way you conduct your research?
I think in a sense is, if I don't think I feel discriminated. I mean, that would be the short answer. I don't know if it is. I don't know if I don't feel discriminated because I never thought too much about it. If there is a proposal I need to write, I try my best to do a good job. And if I get funded, great. If I don't get funded, there's feedback anyway. I look at it, and next time I can do better. I mean, obviously, I can also look at it as, okay, I don't get it because I don't know. Everybody in the panel are male, and they would rather give it to someone that they know. We can also look at it that way. So sometimes um
Mm.
how we decide to it really depends on how we decide to view a certain outcome.
Yes, that's so powerful. So you've never had the thought then I'm female, I'm biologically different from men, and therefore I approach mechanical engineering differently to my male counterparts.
I look at it as I am a person and everyone is unique and we have different interests. I also understand that physically we are different. So, for example, if I go to a machine shop and if somebody asks me to saw a piece of steel, I can't do it as well. I mean, this is just biologically different, but I just think that
Mm.
everybody is different, and that's why everybody work on a different area, and that's why we can work together. And it actually go back to whether we should put people in a box. I mean, why because
Yeah.
of me being a female, I would have a certain interest. I mean, that is not the case. I mean, does it mean that my math will be worse, therefore I cannot do simulation? I mean, there are very good female, mathematician or computational analysts. There are female who work on engine and stuff like that. So, if we treat, or at least how I look at it is, we just treat ourselves as unique and we have different interests basically.
It's a choice, isn't it? You're choosing not to discriminate yourself. And I think that's what's so powerful about what you've said is that actually you're making the choice, and what happens outside of you in the world, in society, etc., has got nothing to do with you because you know who you are.
Mm, you can put it that way, or in another way to look at it is, it's a matter of perspective. I mean, if something happened, we are all going to look at it a little bit differently depending on whether we see ourselves as a victim or for example, it does depends on whether we have faith in the system, for example. So if someone definitely have no faith in the system, obviously no matter what happened, they are going to think that they are being discriminated against. I'm not saying that our system is perfect. I mean, obviously, there will be a flaw in the system, but I think everybody probably have an equal chance of being disadvantaged. So, and in that sense,
Yes.
I think academic is relatively a fair field, if you know what I mean, because at the end of the day, all of us are here probably not just for money. I mean, we have a salary, and it's a okay salary, but we are here more probably to fulfill you know a calling, so to speak. So it is actually quite important for
Mm.
all of us to be able to work together and try to gather the best people for the job. So maybe the fact that I am in such an environment also means that I have more freedom to express myself as who I am, and I don't need to worry as much about my gender.
Wow. Honestly, I don't know. I just feel like I want to hug you. Um, it's just so powerful, your perspective on this.
Because I'm older. That's why.
Oh, interesting. So, has it taken a while to get to this level of understanding of yourself?
No, actually. I would say that when I was younger, I'm just angry about everything. It's never about my gender. Now I think I look at it a little bit like, okay, there's no point to be angry about anything or everything, We only have control about what we do.
Why? Okay, so because I think a lot of us go through angry years. um, what made you decide to stop being angry?
I think this is going to I'm not trying to encourage people to go through my path, but I think for anyone who are capable should go through grad school. Grad school really break you down. um, um, during in graduate school, when you are trained to be a PhD, and I'm sure you understand what I mean. As a student, our sole purpose will be to crack the project, right? And there were so many nights, there was so much frustration. We just have to keep trying and trying and trying to make something to work. I think this process really make me understand that the only thing I have control of is how I view things. Whether I'm happy, I'm not happy, this is something I need to do and I must do it. I'm determined to do it, therefore I do it. uh,
Or you could have given up.
it's not even in the question.
That was not a choice.
My parents used to say that we do need to know when to stop. It was actually one of the questions I asked a Nobel laureate one time. So one Nobel laureate came, gave a talk, and I asked him, I said, there was so much frustration doing experiments, it never worked. Should I know when to stop and when to change things? And that's what the guy told me. It's out of the question. If you believe in it, you just have to be determined to do it and it will be solved. The problem will be solved. And it's true.
But you have to believe in it, and that can be difficult, just finding that belief, that conviction.
Yes, but don't you think this is part of why we become engineer or why we become researcher?
Yeah.
For example,
Yes.
for the skills that you have picked up in grad school or I have picked up in grad school, or a lot of our students end up in the bank or work for insurance company, and I'm actually very happy for them. They, even if you work in a bank or in an insurance company, you are still using the skill you pick up in engineering, in research. You have to be able to think logically. You have to plan things. You use your mathematics skill. You use your problem solving skill. But the purpose of life become quite different. So say for example, for you to do your job to inspire young people, I mean, this is not just about money, and there is passion involved. I think once passion is involved, we look at things a bit differently, and that's why we can have more belief in what we do, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what's driving you now? What makes you wake up in the morning and run to your research?
Well, there is part that are more enjoyable and part that is less enjoyable. So I'll talk about the more enjoyable part. So the enjoyable part is I do have a research portfolio and I do different things. And a lot of these things are really things that I like. So I always joke that when I assign a project to my student or my postdoc, it's like I give them my baby. So if they don't work hard, it's like they are not treating my baby right. So that part for me is exciting. I would like to know if there's any progress in those research, and if there are problem, I really want to help because I want to see my baby grow and become fruitful and stuff like that. That is the part I
Yeah.
like. The part that I don't like is that research nowadays, especially experimental research, um, require a lot of resources. So it really boils down to money. So if I run
Yeah.
a group, so I will have to make sure that my people get paid. So I do have to get up and think and write and try to get more resources to support them. So sometimes, yeah, so I in a sense you can say that we don't live just for ourselves. I mean, we do have to make sure that people that are in our team are well taken care of, and that is also part of the drivers that get us up every morning to do our job.
You sound like such a caring, nurturing person. How does that extend to the other aspects of being a woman, as in, your views on family and relationships and friendships and things like that? Do you have time for it?
Um, I think this is where being a woman is probably being disadvantaged. So, during my grad school time, I was in a group of about, I mean, the group size fluctuate, but roughly 10 people, and four of us were girls. And actually, excluding myself, so three of them got married during grad school, and one of them actually have a kid before graduation. So
Oh, wow.
actually that probably ended up not a bad idea, because what happened was that the other two friends of mine, they they obviously didn't have time for having a child during grad school. After that, they took up a postdoc position, which was very stressful and didn't have time for children. And um, they both got an academic position, and one of them I think got pregnant maybe the fourth year during during the tenure period. So she had to extend for a
Mhm.
year. But everything worked out okay, so that's fine. And then the other person actually didn't even have kid until she finished tenured. So when she got tenured, then she decided to have children. Um, I myself don't have children, um, but it's probably more about a personal choice. Um, but we do have colleagues that have a few kids as well. I'm not sure. So if I talk to my student, I will have to, like, if I look back at, or if I have a student now, female student now, I always joke that if they have a boyfriend or whatever, they should consider having kids now. Otherwise, they have to wait till after postdoc or after tenured. And that actually happened quite a lot. So for people who want to have children early, that become not an option, I think. So
Not an
people might
option.
have to wait, because academic is actually, as you can imagine, is quite competitive. Whether you are male or female, it is
Mm.
competitive.
Yeah.
So I do think that in terms of family planning, um, people need to take that into account. And I I also think it's not just a female problem, because, for example, I see my male colleagues who just have a child. They all have to go home by 5, and they have to come at night. So the actual work time become rather short. So it's also very
Mm.
stressful, whether you are dad or mom. But I guess um for a mom is a bit more stressful, just because biologically it you are female is more attached to the baby initially.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I mean, in short, it does require planning.
Right. I mean, it sounds like a major distraction from the ambition.
I think, yes. I wouldn't
And
say that in the sense. I think we need to be very careful, because I think it's a personal decision and it's a personal choice.
mm,
So the we what I think what we need to ask ourselves is, what do we want in life, and is it possible for us to have the best of everything?
and what's your answer to that?
I think I do get the best of everything, because I never liked children. So I'm okay with it. I have also seen other people who get the best of everything. For example, there are two female professors that I know, and they have one of them have 3 children, and the other one have 4 children. And when I talk to them, they basically told me that once you have kids, you learn to work more efficiently, you learn to delegate. So you basically pick up skills to survive in the the environment you are in. So probably
Mm.
other people can do it better. Some people can do it better. Some people might not be able to do it. So I think it's a very personal decision. But I do think planning is quite important.
I think we live in a world where we see certain women having it all. They have the career, they have the kids, they've got a supportive husband, they're maybe earning a lot. I mean, some women really come across as ticking all of the boxes. And then it puts stress and pressure on other women to follow suit. But it doesn't sound like you fall into that category of feeling pressurized by what other women are doing.
Mm, I think uh, at the end of the day, we need to be comfortable with our own skin. I think this is the thing. And it actually boils down to whether we are confident about ourselves or not. If if someone is not very confident, it really doesn't matter how much accomplishment the person has. He or she will always feel like they are being judged. And therefore they will be pressured to do something. So one of the things I think we all need to learn, whether we are male or female, is that we have to have some confidence about ourselves. I mean, otherwise we live for others. We don't live for ourselves.
Right. And so, in terms of having a sense of being confident about ourselves, how do we do that? I mean, there are young girls who are maybe considering careers in STEM, let's just say, um, who may be pursuing it because of expectations from other people. They want to somehow better themselves or give themselves a really strong foundation for later life. Um, what does feeling comfortable about yourself look and feel like?
It's going to sound like very old school. So if your audience are mainly teenager, I apologize in advance. I At the end of the day, I think we need to understand that it's okay to fail. I think a lot of the thing about being lack of confidence is because we are really worried about failing. So when we see something we want to try, or we find that it might be fun or whatnot, I say go for it. And so what if it fail? This experience of failing make us feel stronger, and eventually we understand ourselves better. We know what we like more, then we will do better. And from failure to success, we build up our confidence. So yeah, I would just say no matter what you want to try, just try it, and it's okay to fail, especially for our younger audience here. I have to say what I noticed from teaching is that nowadays I'm not sure if it was because of Facebook or whatnot. So people have a facade that all look very confident, but in reality, I think a lot of the people are really worried about how people view them, and therefore they don't want to show failure, and therefore they don't want to try things
Absolutely.
anymore. And sometimes you even see people when they do the tutorial questions. So when they cannot do it, they just stop and they ask us for some tips on how to do it. And I always ask them, what do you think? What do you think? Have you thought about this or whatnot? Can you show me how you would approach a question? And sometimes some student would be just like, I don't know how to do it. And I think they actually know how to do it. They have some idea how to do it, but they are worried that, yeah, they are too scared to fail. And that's the thing. If you don't fail, you don't learn, you will never be successful later. Then how can you be confident? Then you will only live under fear.
Mm. Have you experienced failure?
Oh, I have experienced a lot of failure in terms of failed experiment. I mean, that's why I said whoever, it really doesn't matter whether someone want to be a scientist or researcher in the future. If you like uh, to tackle problem, and you manage have the intellect to go to grad school, I really think people should go for it, because I can ensure anyone that get into grad school, they are going to face a lot of failure. And during this process, you really rebuild your confidence, and hopefully we all become a better person. But I think it does actually apply to anything we do, really. I mean, no matter what job we take up, we just have to try our best and do it, and understand that it's okay to fail.
I mean, you talk about grad school as being an environment where failure is part of the course, essentially. But do you think it's fair to say that before grad school and maybe even before undergrad, there isn't really a culture of allowing failure to exist?
I think we are very much governed by our examination system. And in the examination
Yeah.
system, obviously, we are actually being judged. And the fact that, people feel like going to university is so important, um, it become a situation that we don't have room to fail, if you think about it, almost in the education system. Having said that, the best people that I know, that I work with, don't all come from Oxbridge, so to speak. So people take a slightly
Yeah.
different path in their lives, and it's okay. I know that it almost sounds like, I just say it because, obviously our life hasn't gone through a lot of failure, and that's why, we are here. But just imagine, even doing sports or even going skiing, there's actually a lot of incidents where we will fail. And maybe if the examination system or education doesn't allow us to experience failure and to build ourselves, another things that we could do actually is sports. But uh, I can understand that it is difficult, and I do understand why students nowadays are so afraid to express themselves, because they are worried that they might fail, but it's not something that is easily solvable.
But it also sounds like you encourage the idea of, okay, if you can't fail um, academically, then allow yourself to fail in other ways, but just experience failure because it's healthy.
It is important, and I also encourage my students to do sports and whatnot. It's not just about, it's a way to basically experience different things. So if someone, if their sole purpose in life, let's say for example a student, their sole purpose in life is just exam, uh, it's obviously stressful and unhealthy, but the consequences of that failure might just break them in that sense. So I think it's quite important to try different things. But
Yeah.
I do feel in that sense a bit helpless, because I do see student every day. Like we deal with a lot of undergrad and whatnot, and it is very difficult to encourage them to so-called experience failure. The only thing that, for example, I can do is,
Mm.
even for experiments and whatnot, because we do have lab session for undergrad, we encourage them to think, we encourage them to ask questions, we encourage discussion. So if they make a wrong answer, it's okay, what a big deal. And I mean, it's no big deal at all, and that's what we do. We just need to tell them and ensure them it's no big deal, say whatever you like, there's no camera to record you, we're just having a discussion. So so within the education system,
Yeah.
there's really not a lot we can do. But I think in terms of other things, and other aspect in life, probably there are room. We just don't need to post everything on Facebook. Then I think people will be more willing to
Yeah.
experience failure.
It feels like girls are more conscious about failing than boys. In your experience of working with students, would you say that's true, or am I just really not going to get gender differences out of you?
I do think there is a difference. I think I think boys tend to neglect other people feeling a bit more. And I can even see that in my team. So if you think about people uh that are less considerate, is rarely girls, for example. I think that is partly personality and probably partly because we were trained to be more considerate. We as a child we are expected to be helpful. I think we are all genuinely helpful, by the way. It's not because of gender, but there's also an expectation and it become built into us. So we are built to be helpful and we are built to be more considerate, which is true. um I also think that for some female student, um they might be uh, they might get distracted a bit more easily because of what other people think, which is true. But
Mm,
it actually depends a little bit on culture as well, I think. So I'm not sure if it is just
yeah,
because of they are being female or because they are being girls. Whether they are because they are girls or because of the culture they have, but there is some difference.
right.
But
Yeah.
it's one of those things that if we encourage them and make them understand the situation a bit better, I think people become more aware what is the right way to deal with things, and eventually this gender difference go away.
Yeah. I mean, uh, from what you're saying, I really see a glimmer of hope that we could maybe teach boys to just be that little bit more empathetic in the same way that we encourage girls to be that. And if we try to do that from an early age, we could actually we could equalize gender differences.
I saw a show on TV, and it was actually about little boys and girls and how their parents treat them. So what they did is they have the kid dress in a boys dress in girls' clothes and girls dress in boys' clothes, and then they ask adults to play with these children, and actually um, it is the adult that are forcing the girls wearing boy clothes to play cars, and the girls was okay with it. And it's the same thing when the boys is wearing girl clothes, the adult give him a door. Yeah.
It's the adults that need to change their attitudes, not the children. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yes, so actually children from the start, they have no preference.
Yes,
They are basically just, you know, a piece of paper or a
a blank canvas.
yes, exactly. And I actually think that even if we are dealing with teenager or even at university, I mean obviously they are not toddler anymore, but to make them understand that you are you. It really doesn't matter whether a boy or girl, and you can do whatever you like. You can try whatever you like. I mean that's a start. And once they have some positive experience about it, they will become more confident and they will understand this gender equality or this gender blind
Mm,
situation better.
gosh, that makes so much sense, and it's such a refreshing perspective. Have you always been this way, or have your perspectives grown with you?
My friend said that I'm too rational in general. So
Yes, because that's what mechanical engineers are.
I think, yeah, so I think we are defined by our education a lot, isn't
Yes.
it?
It's very difficult to not see the world methodically after you studied mechanical engineering.
Indeed, that's why I think it's a good degree. I encourage anyone, not just boys, not just girls, but anyone, if they think that they want to do something meaningful that could help the world and they are afraid of blood, mechanical engineering is the way to go.
Oh my God, that's so brilliant. Actually, that was going to be my closing question. For any young girls, and actually, I'm going to say for any young boys too, because I'm so convinced by what you've said about gender differences. So, for any young people out there who are considering careers in STEM, particularly engineering, what would be your advice if they're kind of wobbling a bit on their decision?
I think if they want to do something meaningful and actually make a difference, engineering is definitely the way to go. I also want to say that, making money is only one aspect of things, and we don't go to university to get a degree just to make money. I mean, plumber make a lot, or electrician make a lot. So if you want something that really challenge you, that you will enjoy, and after the degree, you have the skill to actually make a difference. I totally think that people should consider science and engineering or mathematics. That's the way to go.
Oh, you've been such an inspiration, and my gosh, your perspectives and your view on the world is so refreshing. You've been an absolute pleasure to have on the show.
Thank you very
so
much
for joining me in Scilence. That's it from my STEM guest this week. My gosh, the amount of times I wanted to hug my guest. I can't believe how rational and logical and clear she is on her self-acceptance and confidence and comfortability in her own skin. I'm utterly inspired and just blown away with her confidence. I want to be like her. Thank you so much for listening to Scilence. Please don't forget to rate and review the show and subscribe, and I'll catch you next week on Scilence.